Not every job gets billed all at once. Sometimes you issue your clients a quote for the full project and then gradually invoice them over a period of time as the project is completed. So today I'm going to walk you through how to create estimates, how to progress bill those estimates, and how to check on the status of each of those projects and ensure that each of the invoices is tied back to that original estimate. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is, if we want to create an estimate for a client, we would go up to the plus create button and then select estimate under customers. Now, this is something that is not included in all tiers of QuickBooks. So this is something where if you want this particular feature, you're going to have one of the upper two tiers, okay? So we're looking at plus or advanced at this point. If you have anything lower than that, you will not be able to do estimates, unfortunately. So what we would do here is quite simple, and you're going to see it's very similar to how we handle invoices. We're going to add the customer's information. So let's say that this is an estimate that I am putting together for, we'll call it Jared Simmons, okay? And we have the estimate date. We can put an expiration date in here if we would like. It is not required, but it is always nice so that the customer understands that this is not necessarily a quote that is going to be valid on an ongoing basis, right? One of the industries that this is most commonly used in is the construction industry. And obviously that is an industry that is subject to a lot of whims as far as pricing is concerned. So you might not want to make it so that your estimates are valid on an indefinite basis. So I'm going to say that this estimate is good until the 8th of May, giving the client a month to go ahead and accept or decline this. Now we can see here we also have the ability to put who it was accepted by and the date that it was accepted, okay? This is a really fantastic tool and it really helps you to create that paper trail. So if there are ever any questions down the road on what was accepted, you can show the accepted estimate and you can also say who accepted it, okay? I'm going to go ahead and leave this blank for the time being because it's not really necessary. The next thing here would be to add whatever products or services we want to see on this estimate. So I'm going to go ahead and make this for just some of the items that I have in here. So they have the 6-month bookkeeping boot camp, and then we're going to say after that they want to go ahead and go to monthly bookkeeping at a rate of, we'll call it $1,500, okay? And we'll go ahead and say, and in fact, what we can do here is, again, remember any number field in QuickBooks, with some unfortunately notable exceptions, like in the payroll windows, do also work as calculators. So if I use the asterisk and 6, that gets me to that full amount. Okay, so we can see here, this is a rather large estimate, which makes sense that a client wouldn't want to pay it all at once, right? This is just letting them know what a year's worth of service is going to cost them. So at this point, I can go ahead and review this and send it to the client. I could also attach any documents that I might want here just to kind of shore up what I am providing to them, okay? You can customize this similar to how you can customize invoices that are going out, but if you're only using this as an internal tool, it might not necessarily matter, okay? But you can customize it by selecting Manage here and then customizing these fields. You can also, like in an invoice, toggle to the different views that the customer would have and make sure that they are reflective of what you would want to see. So I can go ahead and hit save and close on this. And since that's not a real email, I won't be sending that out to him. But let's say that a few weeks go by and he comes back and he says, yes, I would like to go ahead and get started with this. Let's make the start date May 1st. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to want to invoice for some portion of this before we get started. Now, I might not want to invoice for the whole thing. I might not require people to pay up front like that. But it is actually generally my policy that if somebody is signing up for a 6-month term worth of bookkeeping, I'm going to charge them for a chunk of it, enough that I am not out work if they decide to end the contract early, right? So how do we start to progress bill people? Well, the first things first, we have to go up here to our big gear icon, and we have to go to our account and settings under your company, okay? We have to make sure that our option for progress invoicing is turned on. So if we go here to if we go to sales, my bad, and then go down here, progress invoicing is currently turned off. But if I wanted to be able to send multiple invoices from a single estimate, I would have to go ahead and turn this on. So I'm just going to hit the little pencil icon here, and I'm going to toggle this on and then save. Now, at this point, I can go into any estimate that I have created and break it out into smaller chunks. So let's go ahead and walk through that now. I'll go ahead and close this screen. And now, what I would want to do is I would actually want to go into that customer center, basically. And I'm going to go find Jared Simmons. And I'm going to view his customer profile, excuse me. And now what I can do here, once I see this estimate, I can select the drop-down menu here. And I can say convert to invoice, okay? Now you can see if the customer was going to pay all at once and you were already collecting payment, you can actually convert it to a sales order. But if you're going to break it up into smaller chunks and bill over time, if you're going to extend terms to your client, you would actually want to convert it to an invoice. Now, here's where this gets fun, okay? You can break it up in a variety of different ways, okay? You could say the remaining total of all lines. So if you had broken it out into exact thirds across all of the different things on the invoice, and this was the last one you were sending out, you might say remaining total of all lines. You could also say a percentage or amount. So you could say 50% or 30% or any amount that makes sense to you for getting things going, okay? But what I'm actually going to do for this one is I'm going to say manual entry for each item, okay? And I'm going to say create invoice. Now, from here, I have the option of either assigning a dollar or a percentage of each line on this invoice, okay? So for this particular example, I'm going to say that I'm going to bill him for 100% of the first 6 months on May 1st, okay, since he has accepted this particular estimate. So what's going to happen is I can now review and send this item, and there will be an invoice for him for just that amount of $3,570, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close. Now, hopefully, as things are going on, he's going to be paying me, things are going to be happening, but I do want to show you how we can actually break out the rest of this particular estimate, okay, and what this ends up looking like. So let's say the first 6 months have lapsed. We're now getting towards the end of the year, and he's going to start paying for the 6 months of bookkeeping that he has also signed up for, okay? So now I'm going to again say convert to invoice. And then I'm going to do manual entry for each line. Now, I could do remaining total of all lines, or again, I still have that option to do percentage or amount, but I want to continue with this. So now I'm going to say that I want to bill for $1,500 of this remaining amount because that is what it would cost for the next month of service. Now, something I want to call your attention to here, this right here, there is nothing left to bill here, okay? So I am not going to be able to, if I try to enter this amount or any amount here, it's going to let me know that I can't bill anything more for that line item off of this estimate, okay? To be clear, that doesn't mean that I can't still add things to this invoice, okay? Just because I have this item here doesn't mean I can't go down here and also say, okay, well, he decided to also get the bookkeeping checklist, and that is another $10, okay? So you can see my subtotal here now is $1,510. So the invoices themselves are still editable. You are not limited to only bringing things over from the estimate onto these invoices. However, you will not be able to invoice for more than the estimate on this particular line item, okay? You can't go over 100% of that given line item. All right, so this is basically how estimates and progress invoicing work in QuickBooks. That was a pretty basic example overall, and oftentimes there are a lot more levels of complexity here, right? Obviously, if you're working in construction or a nonprofit, there might be lots of layers of approval that go into these. And further, there might be lots of layers of release, right? So you might have to make sure that certain paperwork is filed so that you can bill for the next item. You might have to provide supporting documentation for the work that has been completed up to this point. You still have all the same options and functionality of an invoice that you do when you just create one off the cuff, okay? If you scroll down here, you can still add attachments and do anything else that you need to. All right, one final thing that I want to call your attention to before I close out this review of estimates and progress invoicing is what this estimate actually ends up looking like now that we have done some of the invoicing for the original approved item, okay? So I can at any time go in and view this estimate. And you can see here, not only do I have when it was created and the various activity that has happened as a result, but I can go in here and if I hit edit, I can see what has been invoiced and what is remaining, okay? So if you were doing this again as part of a tiered rollout of construction that you were doing, or if you were doing it as a nonprofit, part of a grant that you had received, that you were gradually billing for over time, you would see exactly how much is still left to be billed. Okay, and that is a really phenomenal tool and resource. It really helps you get an idea of where you stand without necessarily having these amounts sitting as outstanding on your books at all times, and especially if they haven't yet been earned. Okay, so it's almost like I would almost as closely as I can equate it to the feature in QuickBooks Desktop where you can mark an invoice as pending, right? It's not quite in the system yet. You can use it basically as a packing slip if you have a warehouse or anything like that. So this is kind of similar to that where it's in here, it's on the books, it would show up on certain reports, but it's not going to show up on any of your income reports, even if you're on accrual basis. And it's going to give you an idea of what is still left to bill out. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Holly from Accrual Mistress Bookkeeping and Consulting. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, just leave those below. I'll be sure to get to them.